Florida State and Mike Norvell are doing everything in their power to revamp that wide receiver room that we did not see a lot of production from in the 2024 season. Yes, you did have some young players. Yes, you did have some veterans, but for the most part, there just wasn't much clicking there at the wide receiver unit. You brought in a transfer with Malik Benson, who you expected to be your wide receiver one, and there are some inconsistencies there with him, but also, too, with what you had offensively for Florida State and the front trenches with your offensive line, which was just terrible, god awful, and then too, it reflected over to the quarterback room as well. But Florida State wants to find some firepower in its wide receiver room. They found some success so far through the transfer portal, but they're not done yet. Florida State previously getting a big-time signing from Duce Robinson from USC, previously ranked as the number 3 wide receiver in the transfer portal per 247 Sports. And Florida State, though, not done yet, and I think this could be a really solid addition if they can get him on campus soon. This is True Edwards coming from Louisiana Tech, a first-team all-conference wide receiver. Production. This is something that we've been preaching on all throughout these videos, and this is something that you've seen a theme of for the most part for Florida State, and getting guys on campus, getting them signed, and definitely trying to build up in this transfer portal. But starting off, let's talk about some stats, why don't we? First off, 6'3", 201 pounds. Florida State has been loading up on some sized receivers. This is something that Gus Malzahn and this offense is going to want to work with moving forward because of Thomas Castellanos and taking those shots downfield. You want to have some one-on-one opportunities, and with the size that they're bringing in the wide receiver room, also too in the tight end room, it makes sense. I mean, you also brought in Marquiston Douglas in the tight end room, and then also to Randy Pittman from UCF, both of those guys coming through the transfer portal. But more specifically here in the wide receiver room, talking about True Edwards, 6'3", 201 pounds, kind of fits that scheme of those bigger receivers that Florida State is going to roll out in this 2025 season. His stats for the 2024 year came down to 77 receptions, 897 yards, almost just 100 yards away from a 1,000-yard season, 6 touchdowns in 12 games. He started 11 games this last season. He had 4 100-plus yard games, including a season high of 148 yards and a touchdown against NC State. As I had mentioned earlier, he is a first-team All-Conference USA selection. And a cool note here, his father, Troy Edwards, won the 1998 Fred Biletnikoff Award and played 7 years in the NFL. So he's definitely got some genes from his dad of being a playmaker here. Florida State was one of the first teams to offer him once he entered the transfer portal. A couple other teams as well worth mentioning here. Texas A&M are looking into him, along with Washington and Mississippi State. He received a waiver with the JUCO new rule coming in, where JUCO players can receive another year of eligibility. So he gets to utilize that, and that is why he decided to enter into that transfer portal of Florida State. He entered the transfer portal, I believe it was the night or Christmas Eve. There is going to be a lot of teams after him. Whenever you go first team all conference and any kind of conference, a lot of teams across the country are going to be looking at you, and most certainly at the wide receiver position. He played at the JUCO level first at Navarro College, where he earned an NGCAA All-American Honorable Mention. He played 1 season at Hawaii before transferring over to Louisiana Tech. His career totals at Louisiana Tech: 99 receptions, 1,178 yards, 8 touchdowns in 26 games played, but had 16 starts in those. Florida State, like I had mentioned earlier, was able to land Duce Robinson, who is another big-sized wide receiver who you can utilize, hopefully, when you're taking those shots downfield off to the side of the football field, and you are expecting for a guy to go up and come down with the catch, kind of like what you had previously, I would say, with Johnny Wilson. You're not really too worried about what he's doing after he's catching the ball. Well, I would say, looking at some of Duce Robinson's film, he'll kind of impress you with just what he can do after the catch. But you want to have a guy that can go pinpoint the ball and go up there. And that's just something that you didn't really have much of and Florida State's offense last year compared to what you had prior, where you had a lot of those playmaking ability guys on third down to come down with it, like Johnny Wilson, like a Keon Coleman. And you thought you had some of that with your veteran wide receivers. You were hoping things could go well. Tron Powell, who is a really, really big-sized wide receiver, and we would hear good things about him at practice, and things were going well. And then you also see some flashes in games, but there was just too many inconsistencies. And then also too, just a handful of other guys. And we're going to get to a few guys here that are still in this wide receiver team. You still got Hakeem Williams that's coming back for another season, Jalen Brown, Wayne McCoy, BJ Gibson, Elijah Moore, who I'm really, really excited to see in his year 2, which we weren't really expecting to see him in his first season as a true freshman, but just the plays that he was making in practices, at scrimmages, and with the youth movement that Mike Norvell had to roll out, we had to see some of these younger guys get pushed onto the field. And sure enough, Elijah Moore is someone that I think FSU fans should be excited for moving forward, just with his playmaking capabilities. And then another guy, Camden Frier, who was injured before the season, didn't get to see him at all. I'm really, really intrigued to see how Gus Malzahn can utilize him, because he can be an intermediate and really kind of sneaky deep threat pass catcher for Florida State in this offense with his speed. He's a really good speedy route runner and really hard. I kind of like, not even a gadgety guy, but just something that is really irritating for secondaries to try to keep an eye on. I think Camden Frier does fit this offense moving forward. Florida State did do a good job too, and bringing in some guys through their 2025 recruiting class. They brought in 4-star Javon Boggs, who had an incredible last year at the high school level as well, racking up a ton of yards and touchdowns. Another 4-star Tayshawn Gelsey. They brought in Tariq Mallory, a 3-star wide receiver. At the JUCO level, they brought in Jordan Scott. And like I mentioned earlier, Duce Robinson, which I am super stoked to see how Gus Malzahn and new Florida State wide receivers coach Tim Harris Jr. are able to get him going and develop him, because Duce Robinson, coming here and allowing, throwing a lot of trust into this staff to help develop him. I think that goes to show a lot. And that, because to be honest with you, Ron Dugan's development wasn't happening there in that room. I mean, we were talking about Hakeem Williams here. It's time to see Hakeem Williams take not just the next step. It's time to see the big step of being that playmaking wide receiver. And there's inconsistencies. There was drops. There was probably some misran routes. And in some regards, it depends on the communication, because the quarterback room was all over the place, it felt like, through the 2024 year. But, you have some really pure, true young talent in that room. We've heard really good things about BJ Gibson as well, Wayne McCoy. And too, do you go ahead and give up fully on a guy like Jalen Brown, who has that speed? Was it just not utilized and developed well? And, there's a reason why Florida State had to move on from Ron Dugan's, and it wasn't just because of recruiting, but on the field development was bad, and it was awful. And that's why Florida State moved on there. But yeah, 6'3", 201 pounds. I'm interested to see. Florida State is working to get a visit from him. We're going to keep a close eye on this, but to match this in the transfer portal with Duce Robinson, I think this would be a great grab for the Florida State Seminoles and what they're trying to do to improve their wide receiver room. Just bringing in a guy with tons and tons of experience, plus adding on the productiveness of being a first-team all-conference wide receiver. Sign me up. It just makes sense. So let me know down in the comments what you think about this. We'll keep a close eye on the visit and moving forward. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, and please do, if you don't mind, hit that subscribe button. We are growing like crazy on YouTube, and really do appreciate y'all in the comments engaging and hang out with us every time we would drop one of these videos. So appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great rest of y'all's week, and thanks for watching the video.